Hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Today I am playing the new build of the Selesnya Life Gain deck in Historic, featuring the new card, Voice of the Blessed from Crimson Vow. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he mentioned that he's been watching a lot of my videos. He absolutely loves all of my content and can't get enough of it, of course. But he also said that he was a little bit disappointed that my new intros had become so short and that I wasn't giving the proper explanations for each deck like I used to do. Well, I explained the reasoning behind that. I told him that most of my viewers only watch about the first 10 or 15 minutes of my 50-minute or 1 hour long videos. And I kind of wanted to get into the gameplay quickly to show how the deck functioned rather than doing a 10-minute intro. But I realized that the introductions could be quite valuable to newer players or players that are not super familiar with Historic. Not a ton of people are playing Historic and they might not know how some of the strategies work. So then I thought that maybe the best way of doing this would be to divide my videos into two different videos. Do a longer deck tech video that links into the gameplay video, and then also just, of course, have that gameplay video for people who want to skip the deck tech and jump right into gameplay. That's what we're going to be doing. If you don't want to see an explanation of this deck, I'm going to put an annotation in the top right of the video. Click on that and you can jump right over to the gameplay. Otherwise, stick around for the explanation because that's what I'm going to do right now. So this deck basically revolves around the combo of Heliod, Suncrowned, Scurry Oak, and one of these three creatures. I also talked to another friend yesterday who said that he's been playing more Historic nowadays, and he's been noticing a lot of infinite loops in the format, but he didn't seem to understand fully what was going on at all times. That also made me realize that maybe not all players are familiar with some of these common combos that other players take for granted. So it might be a good idea to explain things that some of us might already know more about. Heliod Suncrowned says a lot of text on it, but the only important line of text for this deck is the one right in the middle that says, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. The reason this is so important is because of this other card, a 3 CMC. Also, my friend told me CMC was confusing. CMC means converted mana cost, which is the cost of the card up in the top left or top right of the card, the 2 and the forest. CMC, a term you should get familiar with. It is a 1/2 creature that says, whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. That's all well and fine. How does it go infinite? Well, it goes infinite once you introduce one of these three creatures. We have 4 copies of Lunarch Veteran in the deck, 4 copies of Soul Warden, and 4 copies of Prosperous Innkeeper. All 3 of these cards basically function in the same way. They say, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Prosperous Innkeeper has that same line of text, and Soul Warden is basically the same, although it's a little bit better because it says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. That means it triggers on your opponent's creatures as well. So if you have one of these on the field, when that squirrel enters the battlefield, it's going to gain you 1 life, which will then trigger Heliod Suncrowned's ability one more time, allowing us to put another +1/+1 counter on Scurry Oak, which allows us to create another squirrel, which then triggers one of these 3 creatures, which will gain us a life, which will then trigger Heliod again, which will then allow us to put another +1/+1 counter on Scurry Oak. And you can see how it just loops around until in the end, we will have an infinitely large Scurry Oak. We will also have infinite life, and we'll also have an infinite number of +1/1 squirrel tokens on the field. Now, I say the word infinite because it is technically infinite. The problem is, on Magic Arena, things work a little bit differently than they do in paper. If you were playing this deck in paper, you would just look at your opponent and you would explain the loop like I just did, and the player would say, okay, I concede because you have infinite life and infinite squirrel tokens, whatever. I probably can't come back from that. However, on Arena, there's a limitation. You can't just do the infinite loop. You have to click through everything. So when I say infinite, what I mean is you get up to a reasonable life total, a reasonable amount of +1/1 squirrels, and a reasonable amount of +1/+1 tokens on the Scurry Oak, a place where you feel comfortable, where you can win on the next turn. Some opponents will probably draw it out. Most opponents will concede once they see you've assembled this loop. Now, the opponents that don't concede, there might be a couple of reasons for that. Maybe they have an answer to you. This is not an on-the-spot instant win combo because your squirrels do not have haste. Your Scurry Oak might have Summoning Sickness as well and not attack that turn. It might be able to attack. It doesn't have Trample, so it could get chumped by a 1/1 human, for example. There are lots of ways that this deck can be stopped. Maybe you have to pass a turn to your opponent. They have a Wrath of God. They wipe away everything you've done, but you should be still sitting there with a huge life total, something they probably can't chip through. Anyways, you put +1/+1s on the Scurry Oak until you feel comfortable with what you've built, and then you move on with the game. And that's basically the strategy behind the combo. Now, there are 2 other cards in the deck that help you maybe close out the game. The first one is Trelasara. I'm always going to say her name wrong. Moondancer, a 2/2 for 2 elf cleric that says whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on the Moondancer and scry 1. This is really good because every time you scry, you can craft the top of your deck, find that perfect card, and then also she's going to be a massive threat. And then the new card, which is very important to the deck, I believe, has the same clause on it. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. It's going to get huge. And then at the 4 +1/+1 counter breakpoint and 10 +1/+1 counter breakpoint, it will get some extra abilities. The most important one being flying, because a lot of the times in these decks, you can have a giant Moondancer, you can have a giant Scurry Oak, but it just gets chump blocked. Well, if we can have a giant flying Voice of the Blessed, it can get in and end the game. To round out the deck, we have 4 copies of Skyclave Apparition in the deck. This is going to be especially important because it says that you can exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent with mana value 4 or less. This is good because the cards that you're really going to have to watch out for are things like Rampaging Ferocodon, which stops life gain, Roiling Vortex, a 2 mana value spell, which also stops life gain, and then probably Grafdigger's Cage for the last card that I have to talk about, Collected Company. Collected Company is a way that you can win kind of on the spot. It allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your library, put 2 creature cards from among those 6 with mana value 3 or less onto the battlefield. Well, guess what? Scurry Oak and Heliod Suncrown are both 3 CMC, meaning if you cast a Collected Company, if you live the dream and get super lucky, you can hit both a Heliod and a Scurry Oak on your opponent's end step, for example. Go through the loop on your opponent's end step, assuming that you have one of these 3 creatures also on the field, and then on your turn, you can, of course, swing in with the giant Scurry Oak or the massive army of squirrels. Now, Grafdigger's Cage does stop Collected Company, so you have to watch out for it and maybe use a Skyclave Apparition to exile that in case you're holding on to a couple of Collected Companies. In the lands, typical stuff, 8 plains, 1 forest, and then a bunch of dual lands here. Shouldn't have any problem with your mana base in this deck. The only thing that's a little annoying are the 2 drops, because Voice of the Blessed requires 2 white and Moondancer requires 1 green and 1 white. Maybe you get hung up on that, but probably not. Should be fine. In the sideboard, we have 2 copies of Rest in Peace. This exiles all graveyards. We don't care about our graveyards, so this is going to be really good tech to bring in against graveyard strategies from your opponents. Next, 2 copies of Redain. Mostly we care about the last line of text on the main card. Non-creature spells your opponents cast with mana value 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. This is really good to fight against Wrath of Gods or other obnoxiously powerful cards that your opponents may be playing. Then we have 3 copies of Yasharn. Yasharn's really great because of that last line of text that says players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents. This is really good to stop sacrifice-oriented decks like the Cat combo deck. Next, 3 copies of Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Taxes your opponent's non-creature spells. Really good to bring in against control decks. Puts their Wrath of Gods and counter magic off by a turn. Ajani, Strength of the Pride, just a single copy of this. Mostly we care about the -2 ability that creates an Ajani's Pride Mate, which is essentially another Voice of the Blessed or Moondancer that will just get infinitely big every time we're gaining life. Bring this in maybe against control matchups where they have a little bit of a harder time dealing with a Planeswalker. Then 2 copies of Archon of Absolution, a 4 CMC 3/2 Archon, has protection from white, and then it says creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their opponents pay 1 for each of those creatures. This is really good against strategies where the opponent wants to go super wide, like goblins, and attack in with a massive army. Can make it really awkward if they don't have the mana to pay for that tax. And then finally, 2 copies of Cleansing Nova. I'm not actually sure why the builder of this deck is choosing to go with Cleansing Nova over something like Wrath of God, a more efficient board wipe, but maybe the destroy all artifacts and enchantments ability of this card is important in the current meta. We'll see how things go with this card, but I think this could easily be replaced for something like 2 copies of Wrath of God if you have those and you don't want to craft the 2 copies of Cleansing Nova. So that's the deck. Thanks for sticking around. Let's see how it functions. Hey, thanks a lot for making it to the end of the video. Please let me know what you think about the new direction the channel's going in. I'm trying a lot of new stuff these days, and I need some feedback on all that. If you want to jump into the games and see how the Selesnya Life Gain deck functions, click on that button right there.